You know exactly who this person is. The moment something goes wrong, they're already 3 steps ahead. Pipe bursts at midnight, they know who to call. Someone's relationship is falling apart, they have a plan. Career crisis, financial mess, emotional breakdown, it doesn't matter. They walk in, they assess, they fix. While everyone else is still processing the panic, they're already holding the solution. And everyone loves having them around. Everyone relies on them. Everyone calls them first. But here's the question nobody thinks to ask. What happens inside the person who can fix everything when something breaks that they can't fix? What happens when the problem is them, when the thing that needs solving is something no amount of competence or resourcefulness or sheer force of will can touch? Because here's what I've noticed. The people who are best at fixing everything around them are very often the worst at sitting still inside themselves. And that is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And once you understand where it comes from, it changes everything. Nobody comes out of the womb knowing how to fix a carburetor or talk someone off a ledge or hold an entire family together with sheer competence. That skill, that reflex, gets built, usually early, usually in an environment where someone had to step up and the options were limited, so it ended up being them. Maybe they grew up in a home with a parent who struggled with addiction, with mental health, with absence, and they learned fast that if they didn't handle things, things didn't get handled. Maybe they were the oldest sibling who became the unofficial parent before they were old enough to drive. Maybe chaos was just the weather of their childhood, unpredictable, sometimes violent, often frightening, and competence was the only thing that felt like solid ground. Psychologists have a term for children who take on adult responsibilities in emotionally unstable households, parentified children. And the coping mechanism they develop is almost always the same. Become indispensable, stay useful, keep everything running. Because as long as you're fixing things, you have a role, you have value, you are needed. And being needed, when you grew up in an environment where love felt conditional or unpredictable, feels very close to being safe. That's where the fixer is born. Not from strength, from necessity. Here's where it gets complicated. Because what starts as a survival strategy in childhood becomes, over time, a complete identity. Being the capable one, the reliable one, the one who figures it out, stops being something they do and becomes something they are. And identities are incredibly hard to separate yourself from even when they're hurting you. So they take it everywhere. Into their relationships, where they become the anchor, the advice giver, the emotional maintenance crew. Into their careers, where they're the person everyone leans on, the one who stays late, the one who never says, "I don't know." Into their friendships, where they're always the helper, rarely the helped. And it feels good. It genuinely does. There's a real satisfaction that comes from competence, from being the person people trust with their hardest problems, from watching something broken become whole again because of you. But underneath that satisfaction, if you go deep enough, there's often something else. A quiet, unspoken belief that has been running the show since childhood. My value is what I can do for you, not who I am, not how I feel, what I can fix. And that belief is exhausting to live inside of.
This is the part that takes honesty to sit with. For a lot of fixers, the constant doing, the constant solving, the constant forward motion is not just about helping, it's about avoiding. Because as long as there's something to fix out there, they don't have to sit with what's broken in here. Busyness is one of the most socially acceptable forms of avoidance we have. Nobody questions the person who's always working, always helping, always in motion. We celebrate them. We call them driven, dedicated, selfless. We don't ask what they're running from, because from the outside, it doesn't look like running at all. But a lot of fixers will tell you, in their quietest, most honest moments, that stillness terrifies them. That when everything is finally handled and the house is quiet and there's nothing left to solve, that's when the feeling comes, the one they've been outrunning all day. Sadness, maybe. Emptiness. A grief they've never fully let themselves have. An anxiety that has no object but just sits there, waiting, every time the doing stops. Psychologists call this action-oriented coping. using productivity and problem-solving as a buffer against uncomfortable internal states. It works. In the short term, it works brilliantly. But the feelings don't dissolve. They just wait. And the longer they wait, the louder they get when the noise finally stops. Here's the quiet irony at the center of all of this. The person who is most capable of solving complex problems, who can read any situation, anticipate any outcome, navigate almost any crisis, often has almost no idea of how to ask for help themselves. The skill set that makes them extraordinary in everyone else's life becomes a liability in their own. Because asking for help requires something the fixer was never really taught: the belief that you are worth helping, even when you have nothing to offer in return. That your value doesn't expire the moment you stop being useful. That someone might want to show up for you, not because of what you can do, but simply because of who you are. That is, for a lot of fixers, a radical and genuinely difficult concept. So they keep going, they keep fixing. They take on more than they should, they carry more than they need to. They smile through the weight of it because that's what they've always done. And they wait, sometimes for years, for someone to notice that the person who holds everything together is also, quietly, coming apart at the seams. If you recognized yourself in any of this, I want to say something to you directly. The fact that you can fix things is genuinely remarkable. The competence, the reliability, the way you show up for people, that is a real gift, and the people in your life are lucky to have it. But you are not a function. You are not a service. You are not only as valuable as the last problem you solved. You are allowed to not know the answer sometimes. You are allowed to sit in the mess without immediately reaching for the solution. You are allowed to be the one who needs something, who says, "I'm struggling," without having a plan attached to it. The bravest thing a fixer can do is let someone else hold something for a while. Put it down. Not forever, just long enough to remember that you are not only what you can do. You are also just a person. And that is enough.